It is Sunday afternoon, and the weekend is not over, but your mind has already left it behind. You are sitting in a room that is calm, doing nothing wrong, and yet something is pulling at the edges of the evening. Tomorrow's calendar, an email you haven't answered, a task that never quite got finished. None of it is here yet, but all of it is arriving. Why Sunday evenings feel like dread, and what is actually happening in your mind, is exactly what this documentary explores. The light through the window hasn't changed, but something in the room has shifted, and you felt it before you could name it. That phone face down on the table isn't hiding anything urgent, and still, you haven't turned it over. Millions of people across every kind of job and every kind of life recognize this exact feeling, and most of them assume it says something unflattering about them. It doesn't say that at all. What it says is that your mind is doing something predictable, something built into the architecture of how we move between rest and obligation. The question worth asking isn't whether you feel it, but why a perfectly quiet afternoon can carry that much weight. Your brain doesn't wait for Monday to arrive before it starts preparing you for it. That preparation has a name: anticipatory anxiety. And it's not a disorder, it's a function, one your mind runs automatically when it detects an approaching obligation. Think of it as a rehearsal, your nervous system running through tomorrow's demands while you're still sitting in today. The problem isn't that the rehearsal happens, it's that it starts so early, and it crowds out the hours you actually have left. Psychologists describe this as the mind's attempt to reduce uncertainty by simulating what's coming, which sounds useful until you realize the simulation carries the same emotional weight as the real event. Your body responds to an imagined Monday the same way it would respond to an actual one, and the trigger for all of it isn't a task or a deadline. It's a boundary, the felt sense that personal time is ending and obligation is about to begin. Watch the clock move toward evening, and you'll feel exactly where that boundary lives. Even before Sunday ends, the weekend starts to feel like it's already gone. That sensation has a name in psychology: anticipatory loss, and it arrives the moment your brain registers the approaching boundary between freedom and obligation. You're still on your own time, technically, but the hours feel borrowed rather than owned. Research on autonomy and well-being consistently shows that perceived control over your time matters as much as the time itself. When that control begins to slip away, even gradually, the emotional weight arrives ahead of schedule. The Sunday evening that should feel restful instead feels like a waiting room, where the appointment you didn't choose is already calling your name. What you're mourning isn't just the weekend. It's the version of yourself who moved through the day without a clock counting down. And then your phone lights up with a calendar notification, a meeting reminder for 8:30 Monday morning. And suddenly, the question isn't whether the week is coming. It's whether you're ready for what it's carrying. That calendar notification didn't just remind you of a meeting. It cracked the door open on everything waiting behind it. The unfinished report, the email you meant to answer Friday, the conversation you've been quietly rehearsing since Thursday afternoon. Psychologists call these open loops, and the mind doesn't file them away just because the weekend arrived. It keeps them running in the background, like tabs you never quite close, pulling small amounts of attention even when you're trying to rest. You might be watching something, eating dinner, sitting in a room that feels calm, and still feel the low hum of Monday assembling itself. That hum isn't anxiety in the clinical sense. It's your brain doing exactly what brains do with unresolved tasks, cycling back to check whether anything has changed. The problem is that nothing has changed, because Sunday can't finish the work. It can only rehearse it. And the less clear your Monday priorities are, the longer that rehearsal runs. What happens when the workplace itself starts arriving in your pocket before the week even begins? That email arrives on Sunday afternoon, and something in your chest shifts before you've even opened it. The subject line alone is enough. A meeting request, a flagged thread, a calendar invite that lands with the weight of a Monday morning alarm. Work hasn't started yet, but your mind has already clocked in, running through what the message means and what it will cost you tomorrow. The boundary between your weekend and your work week used to be a door you could close. Now, it's a notification that slides under it without asking. Researchers who study occupational stress call this psychological detachment. And the data is clear that losing it, even briefly, keeps the nervous system primed rather than resting. Your phone doesn't know it's Sunday, and increasingly, neither does your employer. A calendar alert for 9 Monday morning doesn't wait until Monday to find you. It finds you at 7 on Sunday evening, mid-dinner, mid-conversation, mid-breath. That single ping doesn't just inform you, it relocates you, pulling your attention out of the room you're sitting in and into the week that hasn't arrived. The Sunday that felt like yours is now shared with something that hasn't earned that space yet. And when you finally set the phone face down and try to let the evening settle, your body is already somewhere else entirely. The body lies still, but the mind won't follow. It keeps rehearsing what Monday will demand. Anticipatory anxiety doesn't need a real threat to activate. The imagined one works just as well, and often better. Research on pre-sleep cognition shows that worry about the next day delays the onset of sleep by measurable, meaningful amounts. Lighter sleep follows, and then the early waking, that 4 a.m. clarity that feels less like rest and more like a verdict. You already know this feeling, even if you've never had a name for it. The cost lands on Monday morning. Slower thinking, shorter patience, a body that arrived but hasn't quite caught up yet. That deficit doesn't stay private. It shapes the first conversation, the first decision, the first hour. And the cruel irony is that trying harder to sleep only tightens the loop. But the pattern isn't sealed. Someone sitting up in the dark, reaching for a notebook on the nightstand, is already doing something real about it. That notebook from earlier isn't a productivity tool. It's a way of moving worry out of your head and onto a page. Writing down the 3 or 4 tasks that are genuinely waiting for Monday does something specific to the anxious mind. It stops the mental rehearsal because the mind no longer needs to keep cycling through what it fears forgetting. You don't need a perfect list. You need a short one, honest about what Monday actually requires. Pick 2 or 3 priorities, not 10, and let the rest stay where they belong until the week begins. Then, make a decision that sounds small, but isn't. Choose a time when Sunday becomes yours again. Not a vague intention, a real boundary, even an imperfect one that you hold. Silence the notifications that aren't urgent, because availability that never ends is rest that never starts. And protect one thing you actually enjoy: a meal, a walk, something that has nothing to do with work. None of this removes a difficult job or a demanding manager, and it was never going to. But it gives you back the evening before the week takes it, and that matters more than any routine ever could. Some of what you feel on Sunday evening isn't a problem you can solve with a better bedtime routine. Excessive workloads, blurred boundaries, and always-on cultures are structural. They live in the workplace, not inside your nervous system. Recognizing that distinction is not resignation. It's the clearest form of honesty available to you. And within that honesty, something quieter becomes possible. Monday isn't an enemy waiting at the edge of the weekend. It's an ordinary transition, arriving the same way it always has. The dread you feel is real, it is understandable, and it does not define what the week ahead will hold. To learn more, visit hosdocumentary.com.